Chapter 21. Catching Up. Clover walked to the guest bedroom that he and Vyrden shared. Callista's mother said it was her husband's old hobby room. And entering the room, the boxes of old train models and accessories for them stood out. Despite being confined in the corner, the boxes reached nearly to the ceiling. An impressive feat, considering Callista and Nadia's lackluster stature. Seeing the pile of junk reminded Clover of his grandfather. He hadn't been able to see him in a number of years and wondered how he was doing, if he was even still alive.
Clover?
Vyrden asked, in a tone that was clearly concerned about a hypothetical conversation with Fafnir. Yeah, I was just thinking about my hoarder grandpa, Clover said, handing Vyrden a glass of lemonade.
Some people could take that as an insult, but you did save my daughter from a hydra, so I guess it evens out.
Nadia's tone was cheerful and joking, but hid some concern. It's not intended as one. My grandpa was the only adult in my life that's ever really cared about my siblings and I. Clover didn't see a point in hiding himself anymore, not when death most likely lingered around the corner for him, whether it came quickly as a result of Mordred or slowly as a result of Fafnir. His fate was most likely sealed.
I see. Then I'm glad my late husband's hobby could bring a fond memory back to you,
Nadia said with a smile.
I'm not sure what a train is, but he must have enjoyed them to have so many,
Vyrden said, looking to the boxes with intrigue.
I got him one as a joke gift when we were around Callista's age. I think he was humoring me at first, but by the time Callista was born, he was hooked on it.
Nadia said fondly, as her fingertips graced the boxes with the kind of tender love that was hard to put into words.
It sounds like the gift meant a great deal to him. Collecting them probably reminded him of how much you cared,
Vyrden said, his words bringing a smile to Nadia's face.
I hope you're right. While you're here, feel free to tinker with them. They'll probably just gather dust otherwise,
Nadia said with a smile, giving Vyrden a wink.
I will consider the offer, ma'am,
Vyrden confirmed with a smile.
All right, I'll leave you two alone. Enjoy the rest of your night. And thank you for being such good friends to Callista,
Nadia said before shutting the door, leaving Vyrden and Clover alone.
You've never mentioned your grandfather before,
Vyrden said, standing and making his way to the mountain of boxes in the corner. It's never been relevant. It's usually either a life or death situation, emotional trauma, or us trying to recover from the other two. Clover thought about the recent events. His actions made his skin crawl as he wondered how many lives he had taken, not that he cared enough to count.
It's relevant now,
Vyrden said, pulling the cab of a train out to look at. Clover watched Vyrden's rainbow-flecked eyes examining the train. Clover wondered if Vyrden was attempting to uncover how such machines worked, what mechanisms would be required, and how such things had been invented. Clover wondered if he should get Vyrden a book on the Industrial Revolution to sate the Fae's voracious curiosity about the world around him. Back in the day, before things got bad, it was me, my ma, Annie, and Grandpa. Mom was never really attentive in private, but when she made mad personal decisions, Grandpa tried to shield us from them, Clover said. He remembered the smell of the house. It had been crowded, not clean by any means, but also not the mess his siblings were currently living in. After Mom got knocked up with Stephen, his dad split, and I guess Mom was lonely or something because she brought Craig into the house. The memories from his first meeting with Craig flooded his mind, a stuck-up asshole with a temper. Grandpa didn't like Craig, and it caused issues in the family. Grandpa tried getting custody of me and the other two when things started really going to shit. But you see how that turned out, Clover explained, the memories of the yelling matches between the three, evenings of loud words and choices that couldn't be taken back.
Despite failing in his attempt, I'm glad he loved you three enough to try,
Vyrden said, displaying the gentle ghost of a smile. I guess, needless to say, we weren't able to go see him after that. I've snuck over to see him a couple times since then, kept an eye on him while I was killing criminals and such. I've spent a lot of time thinking about a reality where we had gone with him, wondering if I was more vocal, that world would have come to be, Clover said, taking a seat on a nearby stool. The thoughts of his elderly grandpa made his heart heavy. The crushing weight of his past and present often felt like too much to bear. But the reassuring smile Vyrden always gave him always lightened the load, even if only by a little but.
In my experience, people tend to become stuck in their own opinions. They sink so deeply into their own self-created prison that the idea of change becomes an impossibility until their whole worldview has been shattered around them.
Vyrden said thoughtfully, a look of deep reflection upon his face. Is that what you see in us? In humanity? Clover asked. He knew Vyrden was right. He had seen it many times. People who had built their own prisons. He knew no matter how much he had spoken out, it likely wouldn't have mattered. But still, the thoughts persisted. He didn't want to leave his siblings alone in the world with parents unable to care for them, parents who, even with his protection, had still scarred them.
In mine, my people had completely written off the good in humanity. They closed themselves off in a pocket of reality disconnected from the real world, hidden in a veil of their magic and self-worship.
Vyrden looked sickened as he spoke. Clover felt the kinship of another man that had disdain for the society he had grown up in, for the shallowness of those around him, and the expectations for him to fall beneath their self-fulfilling prophecy of self-destruction. I get that, Clover said, placing a hand on Vyrden's shoulder. There was much Clover wanted to say, but little he thought Vyrden would be interested in hearing from a lowly human being. But knowing that didn't make Clover want to reach out any less.
It's all right, though, because I'll change their minds, just like you changed mine,
Vyrden said, stepping away from the pile of boxes, his eyes glistening like pools of kaleidoscopic warmth. I haven't done anything, Vyrden. He hadn't done anything noteworthy. He had made the wrong choices and complicated the situation. They were all embroiled in far more than was necessary due to his partnership with Fafnir.
You made your choices, you were sure of them, and when met with new information, despite the hardship, despite the fact that carrying on with your chosen path would be easier, you changed,
Vyrden said, looking towards a window on the wall to their right.
I think that is amazing. In all honesty, when I arrived, I wasn't sure of my path. I wasn't sure I could invoke such change within the hearts of others. But seeing your ability to adapt to even the greatest hardship filled me with hope.
Tears welled up in Clover's eyes. He hadn't done anything worthy of such praise, nothing that deserved the affectionate words Vyrden lionized him with. Clover opened his mouth. He wanted to deny, wanted to correct Vyrden's view of him, but he couldn't bring himself to. He wanted Vyrden to see him as the man in his imagination, wanted to be idealized by the man before him, by someone, while he still lived. So instead, Clover stood there and wept.
I'd like to meet your grandfather. He sounds like a good man, and even if he is only half as amazing as you, he is someone I would find worthwhile knowing,
Vyrden said. Callista had said her piece to her mother, a potential final farewell, and though he didn't care to say goodbye to Craig or his mother, couldn't let Annie or Stephen see him in his current state, he too wished to say goodbye to someone. I'd like you to. His house is a bit messy, though, Clover said, wiping the tears from his face.
So is my room back home. Why don't we go visit him? By the time Mordred wakes, my magic will have recovered.
The offer surprised Clover. To use Vyrden's magic for something as trivial as visiting a family member seemed wasteful. Are you sure? Clover asked, feeling uneasy.
I wouldn't have asked if I wasn't positive,
Vyrden said with affirmation. The blackened butterflies surrounded them once more like a shadowy blizzard, engulfing them like the embrace of death himself. And before Clover knew any better, they were outside his grandfather's home. How are we here? Clover asked.
I used my magic to teleport us, as I have many times in the past,
Vyrden said with a hint of tease in his tone. How could you teleport to my grandpa's house? You haven't been here, and there isn't any magical artifacts around for you to lock on to, Clover elaborated.
Both of those things are falsehoods. Your grandfather does have a spark of magic buried within the depths of his soul, like you do. However, you are correct. That isn't how I found this place.
Vyrden admitted, with a slight rub of his neck.
When I was watching over you, before Callista won you over to our cause, I watched over you from the shadows. And one of the times I did so, you came here.
Vyrden motioned to the house.
When you spoke of your grandfather, this house came to mind, and I assumed it was this house. Though, I must admit I am rather confused. When you came here, you didn't go in.
Vyrden was right. All the times he had come here, all the chances he had been given, he had never once ventured inside, never knocked or rang the bell. Yeah, I just peeked through the window to check on him, Clover said, smiling to hide his fear.
Did you know you were being followed?
Vyrden asked, aiming an quizzical look in his direction. No, it's because I never got the balls to see him, Clover admitted.
May I inquire why?
Vyrden asked. His grandson is a killer, someone who would rather pickpocket dead criminals than chose a life of law-abiding righteousness, Clover said, looking at the house. The waning evening light gave the house an unearthly glow, as if it was some ethereal, incorporeal phantom of another life, as if reaching out to touch it would reveal it was merely an illusion.
His grandson did whatever it took to survive, and to keep his siblings thriving, working by day, fighting by night, and finding time in between to help them with their schooling. Now stop making me repeat myself,
Vyrden said, a slight stinging firmness in his tone. Clover couldn't find room to fight the aggressively kind words, so he walked to the door and knocked. Several moments elapsed, enough to make Clover think his knocking had gone unheeded. But then the doorknob rustled ever so slightly before it turned, allowing the door to crack. Out wobbled a short, portly man with round glasses rimmed with worn wood. The man's bathrobe fluttered in the evening breeze, exposing his sweatpants.
Clover?
His grandpa asked, squinting at him with the intensity of a hunter on the savannah. Hey, Grandpa, Clover said, to the man straining to see his grandson. Clover felt a familiar hand on his cheek, and once again Clover felt the warmth of tears as the man who seemed infinitely smaller now than when he was a child gently caressed his cheek.
Your eyes seem so tired. Please bring your friend inside. Have you had enough to eat? And what about Annie or Stephen? Are they all right?
The words of genuine concern only intensified the tears Clover was fighting to restrain, but it was far too late for such strength. All right, Grandpa, we can talk inside, Clover said, choking back his snotty sobs.
Is your friend hungry?
The words came with a gentle pull inside, into the house that had books and knickknacks in every corner.
Partner.
Vyrden said as he followed behind Clover. The phrasing of his correction brought an endless sea of confusing double meanings to Clover's mind and caused his grandfather to pause.
Well, that shouldn't make you less hungry, son,
the old man said with seriousness.
Welcome to the family. Anyone so close to Clover is as good as family to me,
the man said with the highest level of seriousness.
Thank you. I appreciate that,
Vyrden said, taking a seat in a red recliner in response to an ambiguous hand motion from Clover's grandfather. Swiping an armful of items off of the coffee table, which was surrounded by 2 chairs and a couch, the short, elderly man sitting a bowl on the table and waddling off to get them drinks.
He seems like a kind man, though. Perhaps a bit on the nervous side,
Vyrden noted, crossing one of his legs over the other in a dignified display. Probably an inconvenience for him, Clover thought aloud.
Doubtful. He doesn't look at you with loathing or scorn. Instead, I see a nervous fear, much like that which dwells within your own heart.
Clover hoped that Vyrden was right, that at least one adult in his life wasn't out to hinder him, and might even be willing to lend his support.
I'm surprised he hasn't mentioned your less-than-human attributes.
Vyrden's unease when discussing his deformities was clear. Clover appreciated Vyrden's digression on the topic. However, his tact was less than stellar. His eyesight has never been great, probably worse with age. Or he thinks it's some weird new style the kids are wearing, Clover said, cutting his thoughts short as his grandfather walked in carrying 3 glasses of orange soda with him. After sitting the beverages down on the coffee table, his grandpa sat in his favorite chair with a loud groan. Clove remembered sitting in that chair many years ago, hiding behind it when his mother wanted to pull out his loose teeth. Simple times.
If you're free for a while, if it wouldn't be a bother to you, I would like to know everything that has happened. Everything that's taken the sparkle from your eyes.
The old man sounded weak, as if the years between meetings had taken a great toll on him. Clover wondered if it had been the worry for him and his siblings. It's a long story, but I can try, Clover said. He didn't want to inflict further emotional harm upon the old man, but if nothing else were to come from the legacy of failure he would leave behind, he hoped it would be the salvation of his siblings, even if it were to happen without him.
I'm sure I have a few years left. Plenty of time.
Taking a deep breath, Clover began the long tale.